Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're plunging into a truly dense and, frankly, often unsettling collection of sources. Nesta Webster's Secret Societies and Subversive Movements.
hmm
This isn't your typical historical account, you know. It's a meticulously detailed exploration of what the author claims are hidden currents and, well, alleged agendas that have profoundly shaped the world.
Right. It's quite the undertaking.
Our mission in this deep dive is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from her work, to truly grasp the core of her arguments, and to explore the surprising facts and interpretations she presents, all while meticulously navigating a complex and at times deeply controversial landscape.
Indeed. And what's immediately striking is how Webster frames her own work right from the start.
Yeah. How so?
Well, she speaks of facing immense resentment, explaining how taking an anti-revolutionary line basically pitted her against, and this is her phrase, the whole literary world.
The whole literary world. That's quite a statement.
It is. And it immediately invites us to consider a fascinating paradox, doesn't it? Why would the literary world, which supposedly values intellect, free expression, artistic creation, why would it be so sympathetic to movements that, in Webster's view, openly proclaimed aims against literature, art, and even science?
That is odd.
She points to historical figures like Robespierre,
Right.
who advocated proscribing writers as dangerous enemies of the people.
Hmm.
And it wasn't just him. His colleague Dunas reportedly said all clever men should be guillotined.
Wow.
Webster even cites reports from Paris sections where people would shout, "Beware of that man, for he has written a book."
That's chilling.
And she notes the same policy was later seen in Russia, where intellectuals and professors, not the common folk, were apparently starving under a form of moderate socialism in Germany. So it raises this crucial initial question: what kind of ideological climate would lead a literary establishment to side with forces apparently hostile to intellectual pursuits?
That's a truly thought-provoking setup. And, you know, it gets even more intriguing when Webster talks about how any minor mistake, any little slip by an anti-revolutionary writer is immediately pounced upon by critics.
Right, held up as proof of incompetence or bias.
Exactly. While, she argues, most glaring errors from those who support these revolutionary movements often pass completely unchallenged.
She mentions a principle laid down by Collot d'Herbois, a pretty notorious figure from the French Revolution.
Oh, yeah.
He famously stated, "Tout est permis pour quiconque agit dans le sens de la révolution." Basically, everything is permitted to anyone who acts in the sense of the revolution.
And Webster thinks that still applies.
She contends that principle, remarkably, still holds good. And this ties into her claim that certain ideas, which she says are commonplaces on the continent, especially the importance of secret societies in history, appear sensational and extravagant in England.
Ah, the English perspective.
Yes. She uses this vivid, almost funny analogy, picturing a West American farmer seeing a giraffe for the first time.
A giraffe.
Yeah, and he's just angry, disbelieving it exists because it's so outside his experience. That, she argues, is how the English mind often reacts to ideas beyond its immediate, visible reality, especially the notion of widespread or even completely invisible conspiracies.
So a kind of built-in resistance to seeing hidden connections.
That's what she suggests, a powerful, almost visceral resistance to acknowledging anything that doesn't fit neatly into one's established view of reality or what's openly visible.
That makes sense. It points to a real challenge for anyone trying to discuss these kinds of hidden movements.
Precisely. Webster's really keen to point out that believing in widespread conspiracies, even ones that seem completely invisible, shouldn't automatically be dismissed as, mental imbalance.
Right.
She offers this telling contrast. She refers to an account by a Mr. Spargo, who described finding these great nationwide organizations in London devoted to stirring up anti-Jewish feeling. He claimed to find special articles in big newspapers, a whole library of books, all obviously well-financed. Yet, Webster notes people who were actually in London when Mr. Spargo visited apparently saw nothing of the things he here describes.
Huh. So conflicting perceptions of the same reality.
Exactly. She uses it to question the names and leaders of these supposed organizations. This comparison is central to her point. It shows the profound difficulty, the subjectivity, in proving claims about invisible forces. Perceptions can differ so much that the idea of a hidden hand seems like a bogey or an obsession to some, while it's self-evident to others.
It really makes you think about the lens we use, doesn't it? how our own frameworks shape what we're willing to believe or even see.
Absolutely. Webster's key insight here is that the very nature of hidden influence means it often defies conventional, visible proof. It leaves the question of its existence perpetually open.
Okay, so let's start our deep dive at the very beginning, the cradle of these mysterious associations moving way back to ancient times in the East.
Where she thinks it all began.
Right. Webster states quite clearly that Egypt, Babylon, Syria, and Persia are the primary sources for the inspiration and the methods of secret societies throughout history.
Hmm. Both the mysticism and the love of intrigue.
Yeah, she posits that this deep Eastern mysticism and an innate Oriental love of intrigue provided the foundational systems. These were then transported west, leading, in her view, to huge, far-reaching results that have echoed through the centuries.
It's a massive claim, really, suggesting this almost unbroken line of hidden knowledge and subversive techniques.
It is. So this brings us to a fundamental question. What exactly were these ancient mysteries that supposedly served as the prototype?
Well, the source describes this theory, quite common in occult and Masonic circles, that a continuous tradition existed.
Handed down through initiates.
Exactly, handed down through carefully chosen groups across different ages and countries. A core idea said to be part of these traditions was the concept of the unity of God belief in one supreme being, the Creator.
But they kept it secret.
According to the theory, yes. Explicitly kept from the profane masses. The reasoning given was that ordinary people were only capable of understanding polytheism, multiple gods, as a way to grasp the different aspects of the divine.
Interesting justification.
Whether it came from a highest aspiration to protect truth or just spiritual arrogance, this secrecy often led to severe trials, tortures, even death for those trying to get initiated.
High stakes.
Definitely. Webster mentions a writer, Le Plongeon, who tried to show links between Maya, Egyptian, Chaldean, and Greek mysteries. He argued the idea of one omnipotent deity was universal in early civilizations, but priests kept it a deep secret, only telling a select few.
Which underscores the exclusivity and the danger of seeking that knowledge.
A theme Webster sees playing out again and again in secret society history.
Okay, moving closer to the Christian era, Webster puts a spotlight on the Kabbalah. She notes that a mystical tradition existed among Jews from remote antiquity.
Right. She quotes a scholar, Vulio, saying it's only a matter of knowing at what moment Jewish mysticism took the name of Kabbalah.
So the tradition's existence isn't really disputed by her, just the naming and evolution.
Pretty much. But then the source takes a really sharp and very contentious turn. It dives into Talmudic references to Christ.
Ah, and Webster suggests these show a particular viewpoint.
An alarming and antagonistic one, yes. She sees it as crucial for understanding later history.
Okay, lay it out for us.
What's particularly striking is her detailed discussion of the Toledat Yeshu. She explicitly calls it a blasphemous work.
Strong words.
Very. She presents it as relating deeply indecent and offensive details about Christ's birth. Alleging Miriam, a Bethlehem hairdresser engaged to Jochanan, was seduced by a libertine named Joseph Panther, leading to Jeshu's birth.
Okay.
Furthermore, drawing on Talmudic authors, Webster claims Jeshu was taken to Egypt as a boy, initiated into secret doctrines there, and practiced magic upon his return. The Toledat Yeshu apparently adds that Jeshu learned of his illegitimacy, was driven from the synagogue, and hid in Galilee.
This is quite a narrative she's presenting from these sources.
Yeah, it is. And crucially, Webster laments what she describes as a systematic lack of complete, honest English or French translations of the Talmud.
She thinks things are being hidden.
She alleges only expurgated versions or judicious selections are available. Passages likely to displease Hebrews, her term for scholars sympathetic to Hebrew studies, have been discreetly expunged.
She gives examples.
She points to a Krakow edition from 1604 where such passages were supposedly restored, only to be suppressed again by a Jewish synod in Poland in 1631. She claims rabbis allegedly filled in gaps orally, where offending passages were removed in later printed editions.
So for Webster, this points to a deliberate concealment.
Yes, a deliberate, long-standing concealment of content she deems anti-Christian from the public, implying a hidden, antagonistic narrative within what she calls modern Judaism and a precedent for secret knowledge and hidden agendas.
Right. This detailed and, let's be clear, highly controversial portrayal of the Toledat Yeshu leads Webster to a key comparison, Christ versus the Essenes. She asserts their teachings were totally different, even criticizing a prominent scholar, Dr. Ginsburg, for what she calls the bad faith on which the attempt to identify him with the Essenes is based.
That's not just academic disagreement, it's an accusation.
It is. So, from Webster's viewpoint, what stands out in this comparison? Why is this distinction so vital to her overall argument about hidden traditions and the, well, purity of Christianity?
Drawing out the bigger picture, Webster meticulously lists several distinct differences between Christ's actions and teachings and those of the Essenes. She argues these differences are critical.
Such as?
For instance, Christ didn't live in a closed fraternity. Dr. Ginsburg himself, she notes, admitted Christ associated freely with publicans and sinners. The Essenes didn't frequent the temple. Christ often did.
Okay.
Essenes famously disapproved of wine and marriage. Christ sanctioned marriage at Cana and turned water into wine.
Right, the miracles.
And a particularly key point for Webster, which she says Ginsburg overlooks, is the Essenes' view of ointment as defiling.
Ah, the anointing.
Exactly. Christ commended the woman who anointed him, and even reproached Simon for not doing so. Webster insists if Christ or his disciples were Essenes, their reactions would have been totally different.
She pushes back on Ginsburg's interpretations.
Yes, she refutes his attempt to equate Christ's teachings on authority with Essene principles, analyzing the Greek text to argue Christ was forbidding spiritual arrogance, not social hierarchy.
So what were the Essenes, according to her?
The source explicitly states the Essenes were a secret society. 4 degrees of initiation, bound by terrible oaths. Their mysteries were those of the Jewish secret tradition, the Kabbalah.
But a specific kind of Kabbalah.
She posits they were Kabbalists of a superior kind, untainted by a later anti-Christian strain. She claims rabbis introduced into the Kabbalah after Christ's death.
So this distinction is crucial for her.
Absolutely. It separates Christ's pure and simple teaching from what she sees as corrupting, esoteric, and ultimately subversive influences. It positions the Essenes as a foundational secret society holding ancient, pure, Kabbalistic traditions, distinct from later alleged perversions.
And from this exploration of the Essenes and Kabbalah, Webster shifts her focus to Gnosticism, which she interprets not as a simple offshoot of Christianity, but as a combination of systems into which a few Christian elements were introduced.
That framing is key to her thesis.
Right. It positions Gnosticism not as an internal split, but as an external, infiltrating force to corrupt Christianity from within.
So according to Webster, what was the profound and, well, destructive impact of Gnosticism, especially on early Christian teaching, and how did it set a precedent?
Yeah, the key point is, how did Gnosticism, framed this way, affect early Christianity? Webster claims it fundamentally Kabbalized Christianity.
Yes, by mingling its pure and simple teaching with elements of theosophy and magic, thereby corrupting its original form. She even cites the occultist Eliphas Levi, suggesting Gnostics introduced a profanation of Christian mysteries, which then became the basis for black magic in the Middle Ages.
Okay, that's a strong connection she's making.
And what's particularly striking in Webster's analysis is this theme of the glorification of evil. She sees this as a crucial, persistent element running through what she calls the modern revolutionary movement.
She gives examples from Gnosticism.
Vivid ones,
What?
like the Ophites, who worshiped the serpent because he revolted against Jehovah, whom they called the Demiurgus, that lesser, flawed creator god in Gnostic thought.
Right.
Even more extreme, she notes, were the Cainites. They had a cult of Cain, Dathan, and Abram, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, even Judas Iscariot, all seen as noble victims of this Demiurge.
Noble victims.
That's how she presents their view. These Cainites supposedly called upon all men to destroy the works of God and to commit every kind of infamy. For Webster, this reveals a deep, systematic hatred of all social and moral order.
And other Gnostic groups.
The Carbocratians reportedly went back to a primitive system of community of women and every kind of license, a complete breakdown of conventional morality.
So her conclusion on Gnosticism.
Webster concludes that the Gnostics reduced perversion to a system through these sects. They worked under the guise of enlightenment to obscure all recognized ideas of morality and religion. This systematic perversion, not just error, marks their importance in her history of secret societies. She sees them as early architects of a subversive ideology, using the cloak of enlightenment to dismantle morals and religion, laying groundwork for future revolutions.
As we continue our journey through history, our deep dive now takes us into the Islamic world, specifically the Ismailis and their really radical offshoots like the Carmellites.
Right. Webster sees these groups as continuing those destructive tendencies she identified earlier, just in a new context.
So from her perspective, what were the core practices of the Karmathites that she finds so significant in demonstrating this pattern of subversion?
What's deeply compelling, or perhaps alarming, is Webster's description of Karmath's teachings. She presents them as a clear recipe for social breakdown.
How so?
According to the source, Karmath established a doctrine ordering followers to mingle promiscuously with all the men as a sign of perfection and the last degree of friendship and fraternal union.
Promiscuously.
Yes, she even states often a husband led his wife and presented her himself to one of his brothers when that gave him pleasure. Once he had absolute control over their minds, he allegedly began to lead them quite astray, using dualist arguments.
So, manipulating them.
That's her claim. She says he then took away from them all religion and released them from all duties of piety, devotion, and the fear of God. He permitted pillage and every sort of immoral license, telling them to throw off prayer, fasting, all religious rules.
No rules at all.
They taught they were held by no obligations, could pillage the goods and shed the blood of their adversaries with impunity. The knowledge of the master of truth, he revealed, supposedly replaced everything else. No fear of sin or punishment.
And the result?
As direct result, she says, the Karmathites rapidly became a band of brigands, pillaging, massacring opponents, spreading terror, raging with fire and sword in the very bosom of Islamism for a century.
Wow, that transformation from a supposed fraternal ideal to violence and anarchy is a key point for her, isn't it?
Absolutely. It fits perfectly into her larger narrative of hidden doctrines leading inevitably to societal breakdown.
The source then draws parallels to the Druses. Though they kept genuine religious beliefs, they also used a degree of duplicity.
Right, pretending to be Mohammedans with Muslims, Christians with Christians, all to hide their secret dogmas.
Which highlights that recurring theme she identifies, outward conformity masking an inner hidden truth, a tactic to infiltrate or operate unseen.
Exactly. And from there, she pivots to the assassins.
Ah, the assassin.
Their hierarchy grandmaster, deus, rafiqs, fadis, she strikingly compares to Freemasonry's degrees. She cites historians von Hammer and Dr. Bussell, providing equivalents like master masons and entered apprentices.
Suggesting a direct link, or at least a shared blueprint?
Either way, it reinforces her idea of a persistent, evolving pattern among these distinct secret societies.
Okay, expanding on this, the Templars enter Webster's narrative as a really crucial link.
The bridge to the West.
Right, connecting these Eastern traditions with later Western secret societies, bringing this hidden current into Europe. Now, Webster acknowledges their initial bravery, their crusading spirit.
But quickly pivots.
Yes, she asserts they became rich and powerful, abandoned their poverty vow, became notoriously immoral despite their chastity vow.
And she makes a fascinating point about historians defending them.
What's that?
She says their continued defense by some historians is, ironically, convincing evidence against them, suggesting a truly noble order wouldn't need such constant defending over centuries.
Interesting logic. What about their trial?
A huge historical event. Accusations of spitting on the cross, other abominations. Some knights apparently confessed, even without torture, according to papal records she cites.
And she defends Philippe le Bel, the king who suppressed them.
Yes, including his debasing coinage and suppressing the Templars. These actions, she claims, resulted in immense benefits to France, fostered prosperity, and were ratified by popular assemblies and the University of Paris.
So she challenges the common narrative of Philippe being purely greedy.
She does, and she poses a challenging question. If the Templars were so noble and beloved, why were there no popular uprisings when they were arrested? You'd expect that for a group devoted to the poor and pious, right?
Yeah.
This perceived lack of public support, for Webster, suggests their true character wasn't as widely admired as later defenses imply. It hints at a hidden corruption beneath that revered surface.
This brings us to a really provocative part of the source, where Webster delves into the Templars' secret doctrine.
Not just immorality, but ideology.
Exactly. She asserts they were fundamentally anti-Christian deists, whose ideas derived directly from Gnostic or Manichaean dualists like the Bogomils.
Moving beyond simple failings to a core opposition to Christianity, a deeper, more insidious agenda.
So what was this core belief, according to Webster, that ties them so directly into this longer, subversive tradition she's building?
This leads us to a deeply unsettling claim. What was this evil god they allegedly worshipped?
Right.
According to the source, the Templars recognized a good god, but deemed him incommunicable to man, so no symbols, no direct worship. However, they supposedly directed their most fervent worship to a bad god,
Why?
believing he alone had the power to enrich them, grant material success. Webster quotes them as allegedly saying, "The elder son of God, Daniel, or Lucifer alone, has the right to the homage of mortals. Jesus, his younger brother, does not deserve this honor."
That's a stark inversion of Christian theology.
Absolutely. They were reportedly taught not to believe in Christ because he was nothing. He was a false prophet and of no value, and instead to believe in the higher God of heaven who could save them.
And the idol, Baphomet,
Allegedly represented this inferior god, organizer and dominator of the material world, author of good and evil here below. While the origin of the name Baphomet is debated, Webster suggests a Kabbalistic connection.
Kabbalistic. How?
To the macroprosopos, a Kabbalah concept referring to the head of the ancient of ancients, sometimes shown as an old man with a long beard or three heads in one. This interpretation links the Templars directly to the mysterious doctrines of the Kabbalah.
So their secret doctrine wasn't just a Christian heresy, but rooted in esoteric, anti-Christian, Kabbalistic beliefs.
That's Webster's argument. A deliberate system of perversion, mirroring the Gnostics, showing a continuity of subversive ideology.
Expanding on this Templar heresy idea, Webster then explores a sect she calls the Johannites.
Based on one of the St. John's.
Right, described by her as both Kabbalistic and profoundly anti-Christian. She points out the Templars supposedly preferred the Gospel of St. John, and intriguingly, that modern Masonic lodges claiming descent from Templars have a special version of this Gospel.
A specific version?
Yes. Furthermore, she alleges that Baphomets, the idols, were supposedly preserved in Hungarian Masonic lodges practicing Johannite Masonry.
Wow. So what does all this suggest about the Templar heresy and, crucially, its enduring influence and transmission through history, according to Webster?
Weaving these threads, Webster argues that if the Templar heresy was Johannism, then Baphomet could plausibly represent the head of John the Baptist.
Their head.
Yes. This interpretation fits the theory that Baphomet came from Greek words meaning baptism of wisdom. It would also align with the idea that Templars had links to the Bogomils, the dualist sect.
How so?
The Bogomils, Webster notes, also had their own version of John's Gospel. They'd even place it on initiates' heads during initiation, specifically because they saw St. John as the servant of the Jewish god Sataniel, a figure they linked to the demiurge.
So what emerges is this persistent thread.
Exactly. An esoteric, often anti-Christian interpretation of religious figures and symbols that Webster traces across these secret societies.
It's not just isolated beliefs, but a recurring motif suggesting a deliberate, continuous counter-narrative to mainstream Christian doctrine, spanning centuries, manifesting in various hidden groups.
And this consistency is key to her argument for a deeper, unseen current of subversion operating through history, passing its core ideas from one hidden society to the next.
Okay, moving into later centuries, the source shifts focus to occultism.
Yes, citing explicit examples of Satanism and the desecration of the Holy Sacrament with a revolting description of the Black Mass found in Heisman's writings.
Taking it from theoretical heresy to, well, tangible practices she presents as abhorrent.
The author also draws a fascinating and very specific line to Talmudic legends of demons, particularly the Sheddim, and beliefs in incubi and succubi. She attributes a Judaic origin of this strange delusion.
That's a significant claim, isn't it? Suggesting popular superstitions have a specific, intentional, esoteric root in a particular tradition, in her view.
It is. So this naturally leads us to ask, how does this intense occultism and belief in demons connect to more, well, scientific pursuits? They seem completely opposite.
Right. Webster brings in Paracelsus, the German scientist born around 1493. She acknowledges his methods approached modern research.
And he got knowledge from secret doctrines.
Reportedly, during his travels in the East. Though Webster clarifies he wasn't a Kabbalist himself and, as an isolated thinker, didn't formally connect with any secret group.
But then she connects to the Rosicrucians.
Yes, an order she claims was secretly perpetuated from the ancient Templars. They had 7 degrees, used Templar ritual and symbols, and aimed to investigate being and of the forces of nature.
Okay, investigating nature.
But here's the crucial part. Webster states the art of poisoning was therefore known to the Rosicrucians.
Poison.
Yes. And she hints that perverted Rosicrucians might have taken this scientific knowledge, which she asserts came from the Kabbalah, and twisted its original purpose of healing towards deadly ends.
So a sinister potential within hidden knowledge itself.
Exactly. The same understanding used for good or profound evil. It fits her recurring theme of perversion, hiding under the guise of enlightenment, corrupting even science.
Now let's turn our attention to Freemasonry. For many, the quintessential secret society.
Definitely one of the most discussed.
The source discusses its origins, explicitly rejecting the common idea that it solely comes from medieval workmen's guilds.
She acknowledges the guilds existed, compagnonnages in France, Steinmetzen in Germany, likely close groups with professional secrets.
But she questions the evidence from Masonic guilds before the York Charter of 926 AD.
Right, and she notes even that Charter's historical authenticity is doubtful. So she argues against a simple explanation.
So what does Webster argue instead about the true, deeper origins and fundamental nature of Freemasonry, pushing beyond that conventional story?
What Webster finds really compelling is her contention that Freemasonry always was an eschatology. Meaning it was always concerned with ultimate destiny, spiritual salvation. Its signs, symbols, words always hinted at deeper mystical meanings, far beyond just practical building know-how.
And she highlights a specific influence.
A very significant Judaic influence. She argues that while traces of Egyptian and Greek mysteries might be there in decoration or brief mentions, the form in which the ancient tradition is clothed, its phrasing, its passwords, are neither Egyptian, Chaldean, Greek, nor Persian, but Judaic.
That's a critical point for her argument.
Absolutely. To back this up, she explicitly claims the Masonic coat of arms, still used by the Grand Lodge of England today, she notes, is undoubtedly of Jewish design.
Based on what?
She cites Mr. Lucian Wolff, a Jewish authority, who states this coat is entirely composed of Jewish symbols, trying to heraldically show the cherubim from Ezekiel's vision: ox, man, lion, eagle.
The four creatures.
Yes. Wolff says this belongs to the highest and most mystical domain of Hebrew symbolism, the Kabbalistic Merkaba, the divine chariot throne mysticism, with meanings hidden from the uninitiated.
Any other example?
The seal on craft masonry diplomas, showing a combined man and woman figure, she also describes as Kabbalistic.
So this intricate analysis suggests Freemasonry's core symbolism and philosophy are, in her view, deeply tied to Jewish mystical tradition.
Exactly, implying a hidden foundational influence far beyond just operative guilds.
Okay, building on this connection, the source then directly ties the Templars back into Freemasonry. It provides this detailed story bridging these two groups.
Linking the suppressed Templars to emerging Freemasonry.
Right. Given the Templars' controversial doctrines and their end, how does Webster suggest this connection actually happened, and what kind of influence was supposedly passed along this hidden line?
Drawing out the larger narrative, Webster argues that Judaic elements likely entered Masonry significantly via the Templars.
Because they were in Jerusalem.
Precisely. Taking their name from Solomon's Temple, they would have learned rabbinical legends linked to the Temple while in the Holy Land. The Hiramic legend, central to Masonic ritual.
Yes.
Writers like George Sand and Regan interpret it as symbolic of the Templars' own destruction. Hiram represents their lost empire, and Maître Jacques is Jacques du Molay, their last Grand Master, whose death they mourn.
And there's a specific tradition about escapees.
A significant Masonic tradition Webster recounts. Pierre Dumont and 7 other knights supposedly escaped the suppression in France in 1307.
Oh!
In the guise of working Masons, they landed on the Isle of Mull in Scotland, held their first chapter on St. John's Day. Under Robert Bruce's protection, they allegedly fought at Bannockburn 7 years later, cementing their Scottish ties.
And this lineage introduced something specific into Freemasonry.
This lineage, especially through the Royal Order of Scotland, is said to have introduced Christianized forms of degrees into Freemasonry. Degrees purified of the dross of paganism and even of Judaism, passing a pure doctrine into the craft.
So it's complex. Templars bring Eastern Judaic elements, but a later process in Scotland refines and Christianizes them.
That's the implication. The traditions evolved as they moved through history, highlighting the adaptability of these hidden currents, according to her narrative.
Moving into the 18th century, Webster describes the rise of French Illuminism. A movement, she says, became intricately intertwined with a recrudescence of the old craze for occultism.
Suggesting a societal hunger for hidden knowledge and power that these new movements tapped into.
Exactly. She specifically brings in the Martinists, calling them a Kabbalistic sect that inherited a large number of Jewish manuscripts from Pasquale, their founder.
Okay, so how did this Kabbalistic influence specifically show up in the Martinist rite, especially in its higher degrees, and what secrets or powers were tied to it?
This prompts a deeper look into the ineffable degrees and how Kabbalistic influence worked there. According to Webster, these degrees, especially in the rite of perfection in France and America, clearly show Kabbalistic influence.
Derived from what specifically?
From the Jewish belief in the profound mystery around the ineffable name of God, the Tetragrammaton. Yod, He, Thou, He, YHVH, or Jehovah.
The name not to be spoken.
Right. Jewish custom forbade the profane from saying it. They had to substitute Adonai. Only the high priest could utter it once a year on the Day of Atonement in the Holy of Holies, amid trumpets and cymbals so people wouldn't overhear. Webster notes the true pronunciation is believed lost because of this.
And this name was believed to have power.
Immense power, according to Jewish belief, she cites. Capable of shaking heaven and earth, terrifying angels, thought to grant miraculous gifts engraved on Moses' rod, enabling his wonders. And according to the Toledat Yeshu she mentioned earlier, it gave similar powers to Christ.
How does this connect to Masonic degrees?
Regan, a Masonic writer she quotes, states that Skemhem Farash, another term for the Tetragrammaton, forms the sacred word of a Scotch degree. This belief in its mystic power is found in instructions for the Knight of the Black Eagle called Rose Craw. When asked its power, the answer is explicitly to move the universe.
Wow. Move the universe.
And what's truly fascinating here for Webster is Cagliostro,
Ah, the famous occultist.
whom she describes as the son of a Sicilian tradesman of Jewish origin who developed his influential Egyptian rite in London. Webster strongly suggests he got his Egyptian masonry not from some ancient manuscript, but from an eminent Jewish Kabbalist in London, Dr. Falk.
Dr. Falk. Tell me more.
Falk is portrayed as a high initiate, the supreme oracle whom various secret societies consulted. Described as almost inaccessible, with pupils admitted to inner mysteries. Even the famous German poet Lessing dedicated his Masonic dialogues, Ernst and Falk, to the Duke of Brunswick, a Grand Master of German lodges.
Indicating Falk's widespread influence.
Yes. Notes from Savalette de Lange and Falk describe him as known to many Germans, an extraordinary man believed by some to be the chief of all the Jews, who attracted purely political schemes, all that is marvelous and singular in his life and conduct.
So this network suggests, for Webster, a hidden, powerful force guiding these occult pursuits towards revolutionary goals.
That seems to be her implication, a hidden hand directing these esoteric currents.
Now, we arrive at what Webster considers the absolute heart of her argument, the Bavarian Illuminati.
Yes, and their alleged central role in undermining society. She describes their founder, Adolf Weishaupt's ultimate aim,
Which was?
to abolish property, social authority of nationality, and the return of the human race to the happy state in which it formed only a single family without artificial needs, without useless sciences.
On the surface, that sounds strikingly like Rousseau, doesn't it? Those utopian ideals returning to a natural state, free from society's corruptions.
It does. So what was the true underlying nature of Weishaupt's design as Webster uncovers it? And how did he meticulously plan to achieve this radical transformation?
Well, Webster explicitly attributes Weishaupt's philosophy to Rousseau's misanthropic jibes, specifically his ideas about property and society being corrupting. But, she argues, Weishaupt pushed these ideas much further.
To complete abolition.
Yes, abolition of property, social authority, nationality, aiming for that happy state where humanity is one family, no artificial needs, no useless sciences, every father is priest and magistrate.
And her proof for this being a conspiracy.
The core of her argument lies in the captured documents, the original Schriften, seized by the Bavarian government, published by order of the elector. Their authenticity, Webster states, was never denied even by the Illuminati. Weishaupt just tried to explain away the worst bits.
What do these documents reveal, according to her?
Weishaupt's Machiavellian code and profound perversity. She claims he used deeply underhand methods to infiltrate existing Freemasonry, exciting curiosity showing glimpses and remarks that may be interpreted in two ways to subtly draw people in.
Appealing to what?
Directly to the love of power, promising adherents the ability to rule over the best men, over men of all ranks, nations, and religions, to rule without external force, to unite them indissolubly, and to breathe one spirit and soul into them, men distributed over all parts of the world.
Did Weishaupt admit this?
He admitted, trying to persuade members that higher superiors had nothing less than this intention, while secretly planning to gradually work it as I please. He even considered exposing rival groups like Jesuits or Rosicrucians to advance his own schemes.
So, for Webster, this reveals a deeply manipulative core.
Yes, driven by a hidden agenda of control and subversion that contradicted the public utopian talk.
Okay, so Webster builds this case. The Illuminati were a clear, documented conspiracy with a radical agenda. But how does she then connect this specific, relatively small secret society to massive historical events, specifically the French Revolution, that reshaped all of Europe?
Right. The implication isn't just philosophical debate, but active, instrumental force in upheaval.
How does she make that link?
Connecting to the larger historical canvas, she presents Delouchet's essay sur la secte des Illuminés, published in 1792, as an extraordinary document. She highlights that it foretold precisely the events that were to take place 3 and 4 years later in the French Revolution. Delouchet warned of a conspiracy in favor of despotism against liberty, aiming for universal domination. A plan he admitted might seem extraordinary, incredible, yes, but not chimerical.
He predicted specific calamities.
Webster notes Delouchet prophesied a series of calamities, describing us subterranean fire smoldering eternally and breaking forth periodically in violent and devastating explosions. She sees this as perfectly describing the history of the next 150 years.
And she connects it to other documents, like Mirabeau.
Yes, she draws a powerful link to Mirabeau's Projet de Révolution, found among his papers after his death in 1791. She calls it a code of hell.
Why Code of Hell?
This document, she claims, advocated defaming ministers, exaggerating clergy's wealth, and excusing calumny, murder, irreligion, sacrilege as permitted in times of revolution.
She thinks this plan was followed.
This Machiavellian plan, Webster contends, has been carried out according to plan from that day to this. She cites its repetition in documents like the correspondence of the Alta Vendita and even the controversial protocols of the Elders of Zion.
So a continuous thread of organized subversion.
That's her assertion. In every social revolution outbreak, the movement's authors have been known to be linked with secret societies, implying a direct line from the Illuminati to major historical events, painting a picture of deliberate, orchestrated chaos.
Following this direct link to the French Revolution, the source then delves into the role of Jews in that event.
A sensitive topic.
Very. Webster distinguishes between the assimilated Sephardim naturalized French citizens since 1550 with full rights and the detested Ashkenazim, especially from Alsace. Figures like Abbé Maury and the Bishop of Nancy protested against them due to perceived foreignness and usury practices.
Okay, that's a distinction. Does she go further?
Yes, she points to specific Jewish individuals allegedly involved in revolutionary events, suggesting a more direct, intentional participation than conventional histories usually acknowledge.
This raises a profound and, again, sensitive question Webster explores. Was the revolution, as some contemporaries suggested, directed or significantly influenced by a particular nation?
Who suggested that?
She cites the Duke of Brunswick, a former Grand Master of German Freemasonry, someone she identifies as an Aaron of the Illuminati. He issued a manifesto in 1794.
What did it say?
He expressed deep alarm that Masonry was being misused by apostates who sowed in the hearts of youth the seed of covetousness and aimed for unlimited liberty, absolute leveling down, with the thrones of the earth as their goal. He then stated this has been done and is still being done.
Strong words from a former insider.
And Webster provides excerpts from imperial police reports from 1811 and 1813. Dry official reports, she calls them, prepared for the vigilant eye of the emperor, never intended for publication.
What did these police reports say about the Illuminati?
They portray the Illuminati as a formidable and invisible organization, operating through small, scattered coteries and private groups, meeting under various excuses, literary discussions, amusements.
How did they recruit?
Crucially, they focus on recruiting littérateurs, savants, and above all professors to spread their principles in universities, subtly indoctrinating youth with terms like despotism, tyranny, rights of the people.
A goal being?
To lead students, in Webster's view, to see the fall of a sovereign as the noblest and most meritorious act before they were even told about a secret association.
And other groups.
The idealists, a related sect Webster mentions, interpreted Holy Scripture for universal regeneration and absolute leveling down, reinforcing this theme of deliberate subversion. She also explicitly cites Monsieur Léon Kahn, a Jewish writer, as finding specific Jews involved, like Rosenthal leading a legion against La Vendée, and Pereira, who, with Cloutz, convinced Archbishop Gobelin to renounce Christianity, figures others, like Dramont, had missed.
So for Webster, this points to a subtle, pervasive presence guiding revolutionary movements from within.
That appears to be her conclusion.
Continuing her historical sweep, Webster traces this continuation of subversive forces through the Carbonari and the Alta Vendita.
Later iterations or direct descendants, in her view.
Right. She highlights this deeply deceptive progression within these societies. Initially, they presented a morality of Christianity in lower degrees, appealing to genuine patriots seeking independence.
But that changed in higher degrees.
Dramatically. In higher degrees, they promised to overthrow all monarchies and bring about the ruin of all religion and of all positive government, with murder, poison, perjury explicitly stated as available tools.
Goodness.
The ultimate goal, known only to a select few at the top, was explicitly stated to be the same as the Illuminati's.
A chilling picture of layered deception leading to radical ends.
It is, and what emerges here as a central theme is Webster's broader analysis of Freemasonry itself, how its structure and symbolic flexibility can be co-opted.
Right. She argues Masonic allegories, like building Solomon's Temple, are capable of various interpretations. The Masonic secret tradition about a loss which has befallen humanity and its recovery can be applied to any group working for any objective.
So the structure itself is neutral, but can be used for anything.
That's her contention. The whole organization initiation degrees, oaths of secrecy, can be employed for any purpose, social, political, philanthropic, or religious, for promoting that which is good or for disseminating that which is evil. Defend or overthrow a throne, protect or destroy religion, maintain or create anarchy depends on the hidden direction.
And she emphasizes the importance of oral tradition.
Critically important. The oral tradition, she claims, varies significantly from the printed ritual, allowing for diverse, often hidden interpretations within different lodges.
She singles out the Grand Orient.
Yes, for being militantly anti-Catholic, even calling itself the anti-church, actively attacking all religion by removing belief in the great architect and the soul's immortality from its system.
This leads to her concept of three Freemasonries.
Based on insights from Monsieur Copain Albincelli, yes. First, blue masonry, craft degrees, a sorting ground, no real secrets revealed to most. Second, the upper degrees members feel important, but only get partial knowledge of the true goal.
And the third?
The inner circle, the true masters, a permanent directing power that is occult and unsuspected, operating behind the scenes, possibly recruiting from outside formal masonry.
So this layered hierarchy allows for a hidden, consistent direction of subversive aims, guiding the broader group without lower levels being fully aware.
That's exactly how Webster portrays it, a mechanism for hidden control.
Bringing us closer to Webster's own time, the early 20th century, the source points to what she calls a hidden hand behind world revolution for at least 135 years.
Drawing that direct comparison to Copain Albincelli's inner circle secretly directing the Grand Orient, suggesting a deep-rooted, long-running conspiracy.
She identifies 5 principal organized movements, active then, that she says share common traits. Grand Orient Freemasonry, Theosophy, Pan-Germanism, international finance, and social revolution. All of them, she claims, share common characteristics, suggesting in her view a unifying, guiding force behind them.
Okay, this prompts a crucial question. What are these common traits that, in her view, bind such diverse movements together?
According to the source, all 5 share several things. First, all have a pro-German tendency. None, she asserts, are pro-French or pro-British, nor do they encourage British patriotism.
Interesting claim. What else?
Second, she states, all contain a Jewish element, and none are anti-Semite, which she presents as a notable distinction. And third, all have a more or less decided antagonism to Christianity.
So, based on these traits, she explores who might be the controlling power, Pan-German, Jewish, or Illuminism.
Exactly. She describes a Machiavellian plan of engineering revolution that she claims reassumed its Machiavellian character when taken over by what the anarchist Bakunin termed the German Jew Company. This, for Webster, became the formidable organization of her own time.
And she discusses Germany's historical relationship with Jews.
Yes, Germany as favorites of the Jews despite anti-Semitism instances. She quotes Anacursis Klutz from 1793, claiming war could not begin or last in Germany without the activity, the intelligence, and the money of the Jews. Klutz suggested reaching an understanding with our brothers, the rabbis, could produce astonishing, miraculous results in stopping war.
And Henry Ford.
She quotes Ford stating wars would cease if the 50 most wealthy Jewish financiers who produce wars for their own profit were controlled. He also reportedly claimed Jews on his peace ship in 1915, detailed how they controlled the war, having the money, and cornering basic materials.
These are huge claims, linking finance, nationality, and hidden influence.
They are. And for Webster, they suggest an intertwined relationship between these powerful elements, leading to a coordinated hidden influence on global events and revolutions.
The source then introduces what Webster calls the Jewish peril.
Yes, not just as a general conspiracy theory, but something she alleges derives from certain Talmudic traditions themselves.
How so?
She quotes passages stating Gentiles are like beasts to Jews, and that in the times of the Messiah, Israel alone will subsist when God exterminates all the goyim of the world.
That's very strong content she's citing.
Extremely. Webster further asserts Jewish history itself shows a capacity for cruelties and internal violence, citing the Sicarii massacre, where Josephus described assassins killing women and children in Jerusalem.
So she concludes by asking about an organized conspiracy, like the protocols.
She asks whether there is an organized conspiracy for world domination and the destruction of Christianity, as controversial documents like the Protocols of the Elders of Zion suggest. However, it's crucial we note here, Webster explicitly emphasizes her lack of certainty on the protocol's authenticity. She says she treats it as an open question.
But she still points to areas for investigation.
Yes, she points to investigations into groups like B'nai B'rith and Poale Zion, and the alleged use of Yiddish as a secret code hiding ideas from Gentiles as areas she believes might shed more light on this deeply contentious question.
Okay. What Webster finds particularly compelling here, despite denials from the Jewish press, she notes, is the direct connection she draws between Jews and Bolshevism.
She presents this as undeniable.
She contends it's an undeniable fact and cites official statements. One is the Lusk Report from America. She notes it listed an overwhelming majority of Jewish names among those prosecuted for criminal anarchy in the early 1920s.
And she emphasizes the Lusk Committee's impartiality.
Yes, saying they were absolutely impartial, and didn't even highlight this preponderance of Jewish names, implying the fact speaks for itself. In Russia, the source claims, post-Bolshevism, Jews became possessors of most of the business houses, forming a new rich class, while Gentile wealth was dispossessed.
And she posits a theory about Jewish capitalists and socialism.
A deeply cynical one. The Jewish capitalists, in her view, might see socialism not as an end, but a temporary phase. A phase paving the way for a Jewish and German plutocracy by dispossessing Gentile wealth, as wealth in Russia supposedly just changed hands.
And the role of the Christian intelligentsia.
According to this view she presents, they are the sole bar to the enslavement of the proletariat. Removing them would leave workers at the mercy of an iron bureaucracy.
This is getting into very difficult territory.
Extremely. Webster also introduces a highly problematic claim, referring to the generally admitted fact of a greater percentage of mental disorders among Jews compared to non-Jews.
How does she justify bringing this up?
While acknowledging Jewish writers attribute this to the tragic lot of the Jewish people in the Middle Ages, Webster concludes that, whatever the causes of this neurosis, it is surely undesirable that a race which exhibits it should be allowed to control the destinies of the British Empire, or indeed of any country.
That's quite a statement.
She adds again that the spirit of fair play is not the characteristic of the Jewish race in general, asserting its absence is seen in attempts to suppress free speech, identifying it as an alien character within the labor movement, contrasting it with the sporting instinct of English working men. These are highly inflammatory claims presented by Webster as observed facts within her complex and controversial narrative.
So what does this entire intricate historical journey guided by Nesta Helen Webster ultimately mean? Where does this deep dive leave us?
Well, we've traced centuries of alleged interconnected secret societies, from ancient mysteries, Gnostics, Templars, Freemasons, Illuminati.
All described by the author as working to undermine social and moral order, specifically Christian civilization.
Right. Webster consistently posits this possibility of a hidden center of direction behind both open and secret subversive societies, often linking it to a circle of Jews located in the background of the Grand Orient, or just a pervasive form of Illuminism.
Suggesting, in her view, a long-running, orchestrated effort to reshape the world from the shadows, a constant battle against established order.
Which leads to a final lingering question, doesn't it? Why do these ideas about hidden power, secret societies, often with those common threads she identifies? Anti-Christian sentiment, pro-German tendencies, a Jewish element. Why do they keep persisting and re-emerging throughout history, even today?
It's a powerful question.
Webster's source material, as we've seen, doesn't definitively prove a single unified conspiracy. but it compiles the staggering array of historical claims, alleged connections, philosophical underpinnings, all from her very particular perspective.
And she herself expressed uncertainty about some key documents, like the protocols.
Exactly. She states she never affirmed belief in their authenticity, treated it as an open question. Yet she still drew powerful conclusions about the Machiavellian plan and the most formidable sect, which she claims the anarchist Bakunin identified as the Jews.
So consider the enduring impact of these kinds of narratives, how they shape how we perceive power, influence, the structure of society itself.
Is it just historical anomalies? Or is there, as Webster suggests, a deeper unseen current at play? A force continually seeking to obscure all recognized ideas of morality and religion, always operating under that guise of enlightenment but with a subversive aim.
Her work presents a compelling, if highly controversial, argument for this continuous thread of subversion.
And it certainly compels us to consider how much of what we see as spontaneous change might, in fact, be the calculated result of forces operating way beyond our immediate sight, forever influencing how history unfolds.
We hope this deep dive has given you a comprehensive yet profoundly thought-provoking look into this dense and, yes, controversial material.
It definitely gives you a lot to think about.
It certainly makes you think differently about how ideas, whether whispered in secret lodges or published in manifestos, might just ripple through time to shape our world in ways we're only just beginning to grasp. We encourage you to reflect on these intricate historical claims and their enduring implications. And perhaps to consider the possibility that some invisible forces might indeed be at play, influencing events in ways that are not always immediately apparent.